Hi. Hi. I'll get better at that, I promise. Uh, this, I want to talk about uh, kind of like throughout my life. Uh, I felt like I had a problem. I felt like there was something wrong with me. That I was just not doing something right, or just born defective. My parents thought I had autism because I just didn't I wasn't sociable and that kind of thing, and I didn't really see it that way. I've seen people with autism, and I feel like that's not me. Uh, I don't know. I know people describe autism as a spectrum, so I don't really know enough about it. But from what I've heard, I don't quite fit the uh, the symptoms and that kind of thing. But well, some of them I do, just not. But I have some of the symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder, some of the symptoms of avoidant personality disorder, some of the symptoms of depression. I mean, so it's like, you know, uh, but it's pretty much always been that way. Like it's been a from the beginning. Like as a kid, I was thinking I need to see a psychologist, and growing up, I never thought I had suspected I was trans several times growing up, which you can. I go over those. Sometimes I go over those in just different videos, but I did actually make a video on how I came to the idea that I was trans, or that I am trans. And I'm actually going to take my pills right now because I just thought about it. I've been basically laying in bed all day, not doing anything because my Jackery is dead, and I was working on editing a video that I made yesterday or the day before, and killed the Jackery. Used it and went completely flatlined it, and and then it was cloudy all day today, so I only got 6% charge from my solar panel into the Jackery. But so I'm stuck here without electricity. To run my laptop, and I have just a little bit of charge left on this tablet, and a little bit left on my phone. And from now on, I'm not going to use my phone to make videos because it's 26 minutes and 46 seconds time limit. So it shuts off recording. It doesn't actually shut off. I put the estrogen under my tongue. If you don't know, you do that to protect your liver, so that the estrogen just goes straight into your bloodstream. So if I'm talking kind of funny, that's why. Oh me. But I had suspected that I was trans just on a few occasions. Just Freudian slip on one occasion. I did actually try on women's clothing a few times, and it wasn't the fact that I tried on the women's clothing. It was it was noticing how disappointed I was in how unsexy I was, like as a woman, that sort of thing. So those are sorts of things that kind of led up to that. But it never. occurred to me that the reason that I was unhappy, or that this feeling that there was like something wrong with me, or that I was just not, I hadn't quite figured life out yet. Uh, it never occurred to me that that had anything to do with these Freudian slips, or the disappointment with not being a sexy woman kind of thing. Like, it just didn't make sense. Like, I remember thinking, this, so like the Freudian slip that I'm referring to was when I referred to myself as granddaughter, uh, and in a conversation, as like I was like an 11-year-old, and my brother and I think my brother and I were doing something we weren't, maybe shouldn't have been doing, or something like that. And I just remember saying something like, I don't think grandma would like it if she knew her granddaughter were doing this, talking about myself. And when I said it, it felt right. It felt like I had used the right word, and I thought, it took me, like, I had that momentary pause where I was like, wait a minute, I'm not a daughter, I'm not a girl. And but then that was kind of followed up by, maybe I am a girl. Like, that just felt right for me to say that. And but I thought, there's nothing I can do about it, so you know but it just never occurred to me that that was why I was, just kind of having trouble functioning in society. uh, and I did, but even I did, uh, like, I was never confident in my masculinity. I was never, like, my struggles didn't exclude my insecurities around my masculinity, but it was never like, I'm a woman. It's more like I'm just not a man. Like, I'm not a real man. I'm a wannabe kind of, and I didn't really want to be, but there were times in my life, like when I was dating a girl, and I just remember, like, I did a lot of walking through the neighborhood at that time, and I remember walking by houses and thinking, just picturing like these husbands and wives in their houses. And I was thinking about this girl that I was dating, and I just remember thinking, I just can't picture myself like as her husband, or just a husband. And uh, I, when I had that thought, I did have that, like, kind of like, would I be happier? Should I be a wife? But I didn't really want to think about that. And so instead, I basically just took that as, like, I'm this just kind of weak man, basically. Like, I'm just a failure, like, at being a man, kind of. But the other part of that, so what I wanted to talk about, I don't know if I said it, is kind of like uh, these theories that I had. That basically, these, like, what was I telling myself to, that I thought my problem was. So the main one was that I just didn't have confidence, that I didn't have faith, that I'd had, like, too many failures, along the way, and I was basically just like in this kind of loser's mentality, you know. At a very young age, probably up until high school, the end of high school, I thought it was just that my mother had sent me away. When I was 8 years old, I lived with my mother until I was 8, and then I got into it wasn't really a fight. I basically attacked my brother, so to speak. I threw a grocery cart wheel. There was a loose wheel, like a. It wasn't loose on the cart. It was off the cart. We were using it to play tic-tac-toe, and he cheated. So I took the wheel and I threw it at him and hit him in the back with it, like right center in the spine, and It was a pretty nasty thing to do. Of course, I was only 8 years old, so I don't know that I could throw it that hard, and I probably threw it like a girl. But eh. uh, so she sent me away, and basically just backed out of my life. Eventually she sent my brother too, and so she sent me to live with my dad. My parents were divorced when I was 3, and she basically just backed out of, slowly, just kind of like that contact that we had just kind of just dwindled, just constantly just eroded, until it was like, you go years without talking to her. As a teenager, it was already to the point where I was only seeing her like once or twice per year. And then after I got to be like in my 20s, that by that point it was like not even once per year. It was already like once every other year. So that was something. That was one of my things where I thought, that's why I'm struggling. Is this I don't have a mother. My mother gave me up, kind of thing. Then when I was 14, I'd been living with my dad. I moved in with him when I was 8. So I was with him and his new wife, and they already had a kid, and they had one more after I moved in. So it was me and his wife, his new wife, and then my 3 brothers. So I have one full-blooded brother and then 2 half-brothers. And we were all living together. And when I was 14, she left and took her 2 boys with her. And that was painful. So, because in that 6-year period, is that 6 years from 8 to 14? Yeah, 6 years. I had already taken calling her mom, and I think I was calling her mom before like almost as soon as I moved into that house. I don't remember how long it took. I think it was less than a year from the time I moved in with them that I was calling her mom. And she liked that, or she seemed to anyways, or she was okay with it anyways. And in a way she was my mom, but it did take a while. Like it was not, I remember like we had a dog, and our dog got run over. I saw it happen because my brother and I were riding our bicycles up the street out of the neighborhood, and our dog followed us, and we could not get the dog to stay at the house. So we were just like, all right, you come with us. And I don't think I need to you can probably imagine what happened. Pickup truck passed us on the road, and the dog, for whatever reason, just felt like it needed to attack the the truck, or not attack it, but just run out into the road to, I don't know, bark at it or whatever, and just got smashed. And so I came home. The person who was driving the truck was nice enough to take us back home. We put our bicycles in the back of their truck and the dead dog in the back of the truck, and rode home. And I was just sobbing, just like unconsolably. Is it unconsolably or it's inconsolably? Inconsolably, right? For I don't know how long. It seemed like a really long time. And she came into the bathroom, where I think I'd gone into the bathroom or something, and she came in there and held me, like, put her arms around me for what seemed like an awkwardly long amount of time. But that was the first time really that I felt like this woman actually does see me as her child. And yeah, but then like a year later, not even a year later, she was gone. And that relationship ended. It was pretty much the same thing with my mother, like where it was like it just kind of dwindled. Like I would go see her sometimes, even after the divorce, I would go see her. But then it just kind of dwindled off into nothing, pretty much. And so I don't mean to discount these in this talk. I don't mean to say that that was not a traumatic experience, but losing both of those were not. I don't mean to say those were not traumatic experiences. But from my perspective, I saw that. I was like, well, I'm unhappy. Like, I'm just like, something's wrong with me, and it's these things. These are the things that are causing me to be upset, and to just I'm a mess, so to speak, when I'm around people. Feeling like I just can't reveal myself, and for my lack of confidence, because I kind of saw that. I was fully aware of my lack of confidence, and I was fully aware of kind of how afraid I was around people. Excuse me. And I felt like that was it. And like, I believe I've said it in at least one video already, that I've been tentatively diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Not autism, but I probably shouldn't say it like that. You know, if you have autism, I don't mean to make it sound like your condition is worse. But I don't know. I think there's just a little bit of resentment about that, because of this thing with my family, about they're thinking their doctor is trying to diagnose me. But anyways, yeah, just the lack of confidence, and yeah. So like, when things like the first girl that I had sex with, we we would play around a lot. Like, just lay together and that kind of thing, and watch TV and that kind of thing. I'm trying to think about what happened first, because we had sex. I think I told her, I just think you're cute, or something like that, and I think she was kind of like, I think you're cute too. And I think we just started making out, and then like a few days later we had sex, and I thought it was fantastic. I remember thinking, my thought is, I am home. And but then she didn't want to do it again, and but then we did play around after that still. Like, she would try to stroke me and give me blowjobs and that kind of thing. But then it was like I couldn't get an erection, and I would just be feeling anxious, and feeling like just uncomfortable, and feeling like I don't know, just that feeling that something's wrong with me. Like, I am just kind of insecure, and yeah, basically my theory for that was that I had already basically lost two mothers. And when I say lost them, I mean like they just made the conscious decision to leave my life. and that it was basically just a fear of her abandoning me. That it was like I feel the need to perform in order to keep her, and uh, because I feel insecure in my ability, or I'm afraid that she's going to leave, that I just the anxiety around sex just wouldn't let me. It wouldn't happen. So that was that 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 plagued me for a long time, and that relationship didn't last very long. I went to college, and that was pretty much the end of it. I think I was 16 or 17. I don't remember, but yeah, when I was in college, that happened a few times where I would meet a girl. She would. There was one girl I met who was. I was like, she's kind of cute. I'm not really interested. She was more interested in me than I was in her, and she tried to. Uh, she wanted to play with me. She wanted to make out and that kind of thing, and it was a similar situation. I just couldn't get an erection. But at in that case, I think that was more just because I just wasn't interested from the beginning. But and then that's when I started. It was in college the first time I was attracted to a man, and that's kind of when things just really just turned to. My life kind of turned into a hell. So while I was in college, anyways, it was okay. I was using drugs and drinking and that kind of thing, and coming out of my shell. But at that point, like I did not. I liked the guy. He approached me one time when we were on Robitussin. In my he We were in this suite, like a we called it a suite. It might not be what most people think of as a suite. Uh, but each floor had four suites, and then each suite had like 5 rooms in it, basically. And it was basically just the suite was basically just a hallway with like 3 rooms on one side, one room on the end, the upper class advisors room on one side, and the bathroom on that same side. I don't know if you needed to know all that, but so he was in the. I was in the first room. If you go in the hallway, I was in the first room on the left. He was in the third room on the left. This is where he stayed. So him and his roommate were the 2 guys that I hung out with all the time. I mentioned them in another video I just made. Uh, so I used to spend most of my time with them. I would go to their room, and it was in their room the first time I got drunk, and then when we would do Robitussin, usually we'd do it in that room. And I think it was when we I had tried weed for the first time, and it was when I was high on weed was when the realization that I was attracted to this man that I was spending all this time with. That was when it came to me. It was when I was high, and I remembered. I became aware that I was attracted to him, but it was like there's immediately like the brakes got put on, and I was like, I can't do anything with him because I know that if I do, I might have the order of my thoughts wrong here, but it may not make that. It may not matter, but I can't do anything with him because I know that if I do, I won't be able to keep it a secret, and if I tell my family, they'll reject me. And but then the thought came that me being gay was actually the reason, or a reason, that my dad's second wife left. Because my brother had told me uh, maybe 2 or 3 years before I went to college, back when I was still thinking that I was straight, that he overheard my dad and his wife talking, and that he said that they said that one of them said that they thought I would be gay when I grew up, and when he told me that, I thought, yeah, you know, I love Playboy. I did. I love looking at Playboys. I love masturbating to Playboys. Uh, Giant breasts were my favorite thing. But but when I had that realization, she left, and I remember when she left. It was after we had pretty much adopted my cousin. I had a crackhead uncle, uh, and his kids were in need of being rescued, you might say. So we adopted one of them. One of them went to an orphanage, and it was when we adopted him that shortly after we adopted him that she left, and someone that's made the comment that that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I remember thinking, well, what were the other straws? What were the other things that she didn't like? And that's when I was in this moment in college, when I was high and I was going through this, I was like, oh, she didn't want to have a gay stepson. Uh, and When that thought came to me, I wanted to kill myself. I thought, I'm glad that I don't own a gun, because if I owned one right now, I would shoot myself in the head with it. And of course, I didn't. Maybe in a parallel universe I did. I don't know, but uh, uh, so that struggle with my sexuality for a long time was just enough for me to kind of occupy my brain as with something as this is my problem, is this question about my sexuality, and which of course was affecting kind of how I saw my masculinity too. So just thinking that like I'm just like a fucked up man kind of thing. The guy I was going to mention it. I started telling this story. The guy, when we were tripping on Robitussin, came to my room, and he came to my door like right as I was walking out. So we were like face to face in the doorway, and he just stopped like right in front of me, and he just said, "Mike." And he just stood there like just grinning at me, just like, I mean, we were like, I don't know, a foot away from each other, and I just remember thinking he wants to kiss me, and I thought, I want to kiss him. It is, there was no doubt about it. I was like, that it would make me so happy to kiss you right now, but I just put my hand up and I walked around him and went to his room, and then he stayed in my room, uh, and I went to his room, and after a while he didn't come back, and I was like, what is going on? I think I was in his room for like 20 minutes. I was tripping on Robitussin, so things were a little bit, fuzzy, but so I decided I'll go back to my room, see what's going on. And I got back to my room. He was laying in my bed, as if he were just waiting for me. And I thought, I so would just love to go over there and lay down with him and just put my hand up his shirt and just feel his chest. And I didn't do it. I couldn't do it. I just felt like that same thought was there, that thought that if my family finds out, and they will find out because I won't be able to keep the secret, they'll reject me. And I think my life if I had on that night when he approached me, I think if I had made the yes decision instead of the no decision, I think my life would be totally different right now. That would have been one of those moments that where the change was so profound that it was like I probably wouldn't even my life wouldn't even be close to where it's at right now. That's just what I think, especially if we had started dating. Uh, you know, then I don't like to repeat myself in all these videos, but I don't know if you've watched all my videos or not. So I did get kicked out. I got kicked out of the school. I got put on academic suspension because I wasn't going to class and that kind of thing. My grades dropped, and I guess schools know that's typical. And what they do is they just put you on. They give you a year. They say just take off for a year and come back when you get your head together, or when you know you want to be here. And but I didn't want to go back because I felt like that kind of me hanging out with those two guys was the only reason that I wanted to be there. And I thought that's not a reason to go back. And like I'm not gonna go to school just to be around people, but but I never met a guy like him after that. You know, he was the kind of guy that I would feel good about dating. Like I meet a lot of guys that I'm attracted to, or I have met a lot of guys that I'm attracted to, but most of them I just don't feel good about dating. Uh, with him, it was just because he might have been trans. He was the kind of guy that if he saw me like this, I think he would really like it. I think he was probably the kind of guy. If he wasn't trans, he would probably have no issue with dating a trans. And because he was just like he had this kind of like everything is beautiful attitude. I remember we were watching Star Trek, and there was some alien character on the screen, and I said, "That's a weird looking uh, alien." And he's like, "Everything is beautiful." I was like, "I think I just fell in love with you," and because he made me feel that way. I felt like I was not a freak in his presence. Uh, but yeah, so I was there for a year and a half, and it was like my time with Jesus came to an end. He was. I kind of saw him that way. I kind of saw him as like my Jesus, because he that was like the closest thing to unconditional love I think I've ever been around. At least then, at that age, and I don't think Jesus would take Robitussin, but I don't know. He probably would have tried it at least once though. Uh, but yeah, so uh, that kind of knowing that I had been attracted to a man and that kind of thing, uh, I struggled with that for a long time, and I'm not gonna say that was not my problem. It was a problem. It was a problem, just like my two mothers leaving was a problem. Uh, but it did. I would say that I kind of fixated on that a little bit too much in the sense of like I'm still unhappy. I'm still miserable. Uh, still don't know why though, and it just seems like well, it must be these kind of just like uh, things bothering me, and I remember coming back from college, and I remember I continued the drug use, and I started keeping a diary for when I was on Robitussin by myself, because that for me was a way to reflect. Like I would drink a bottle of Robitussin and then just sit and write and doodle for like the entire evening. And I remember the very first entry I made in that journal when I first started doing that was me talking about how I hated myself. Sorry sometimes because I hate myself. Madly unhappy waste of misgiven love I am. Fortitude, I possess no real strength except the love I cannot give away. That's what I wrote in that very first journal. I know because that first journal was my best. And actually, that wasn't my first. That was my first in a certain period of my life. I had stopped doing that for a while, and then I started doing it again. The first ones I wrote, I actually burned. Oh, because I thought they were weight. But yeah, it's like the trans thing for me. Like coming to the discovery that I was trans was largely this basically just years of just being unhappy, but trying to understand what was causing me to be unhappy. And so I had a lot of things in my life that I kind of, throughout my life I thought, well, that's it. And like my problem is that my mother abandoned me, or my problem is that I didn't make out with the guy that I should have made out with, or those sorts of things. But basically what eventually happened was I started to feel like those aren't it. That's not it. And it just seemed like I was this kind of miserable state that I was in just seemed to outlast all these things. It seems like I won't say that I should have gotten over those because I wasn't really stuck on those. That makes sense. Like I wasn't upset that my mother left. Like that's why I was questioning it, because like I might think to myself, well, I'm struggling, I'm anxious. It must be because my mother abandoned me, kind of thing. But the thing was like I didn't miss that. I wasn't like, oh my God, I miss my mother. I wish she would take me back, kind of thing. It was more like I felt like I'd already gotten over it, really. And but I just didn't have anything then to explain why I was so unhappy. Being in the army was another thing. I mean, I had my first actual gay experience in the army, and then when that happened, that just knocked me down a little bit further, because I just felt like I was the equivalent of the whore in church. Because if you think of the army as a church, what is like the worst sinner you can be? It's to be gay, to be effeminate. And so when I had my first gay experience, I was stationed in Hawaii. I've already told this story in another video. I don't think I posted it, but I don't want to go through all that again right this minute, because I do want to try to keep this short. And so I'm already at almost 40 minutes. But because it really is not that much to tell. But yeah, after that happened, I felt like I was just the lowest creature on the face of the earth, or at least in the army. And after it happened, I came back and told a bunch of people about it, and then I felt like that was a mistake, and I was worried that they would tell everybody else, and so I spent like the first year kind of obsessed with just getting it out in the open, but not being able to share it, Not like I would like for the very first year I was at my duty station. Like every day, I would literally be just like, just say it, just go. Like I'd be standing in my platoon, like the entire platoon standing around, everybody's just talking and stuff, and I'd be like, just say it, put it out here in front of everybody. Say I had a gay experience, and I couldn't do it, and that was another one of those things where it was like, I'm just a weak, scared little man kind of thing, and eventually I did do it. It took me a year, but by then the cathartic experience I was hoping for was kind of like, no, it's like you. I think I'd already bashed myself so much by then, because what happened was during that year where I was, just in this kind of just like, I got like frantic almost state. They started giving me shit for that, for acting weird, for acting like I was like a spy, kind of. That they used to give me shit for being an implant, and just being a weirdo kind of thing, and weirdo. But that when they started giving me shit, it just confirmed that reaffirmed that notion that like there's something wrong with me. There is something. I'm doing something wrong. Like I'm just not. But it just never. It didn't occur to me. When I left the army, I left right after I got back from my deployment. Basically, I was deployed to Afghanistan, and for a year. And when we came back, we had to go through this. I forget what it's called. It's like basically like reintegration into society type thing where you do a lot of you go listen to a lot of people talk and that kind of thing. Like some of it's just in a small classroom. Sometimes it's in like an auditorium, but people are just talking about things like getting picked on, not bullying people and that kind of thing. But I remember in one of the classroom settings, there one of the sergeants from our company was talking to us, and he said, "Now, I don't even know why he said this." He said, "Now, when some of you get out of the army, some of of you will become women." I didn't know it at that time, but there are more trans in the military by percentage than in the general population. There are so many trans in the military, maybe not transitioned yet, but that the VA, the Veterans Administration, has, like at least at the hospital that I went to, they had a trans team, like a group of psychologists who are kind of designated for treating transgender veterans, and that's what they told me. It was my, well, not they, but one of my psychologists told me that. She said there are more trans in the military by percentage than in the general population. And I asked her theories and that kind of thing, and they were pretty much what you might consider the obvious. Like guys who are insecure about their masculinity trying to affirm their masculinity and that kind of thing. For me, it wasn't really that. For me, it was more just trying to get my life in order. I was going down the drug toilet. I needed something to save me. I never thought like the army would make me straight or make me a real man or anything like that. But I mean, I certainly didn't want to be like the men in the army. Like the guys that I was there with, I certainly didn't want to be like them, which might have been partly why they were giving me shit, because they're probably like looking at me like, this guy thinks he's better than us. I was like, yeah, I do. But when he said that, some of you will get out of the army and become women, I remember just kind of hanging my head thinking, well, that's probably going to be me. But it wasn't like it wasn't like, well, I think I'm trans. It's more like there's something wrong with me, and it wouldn't surprise me if that's it. You know, it's kind of like that, because that's just like the I'm already as about as low as I can get. That's the only way I can get any lower. You know, that's how I felt about trans at that time. My first experience, I think the first time I saw a trans person, like in person, I was at a bar, and I just remember thinking to myself, what a weirdo. You know, like, why is this guy wearing women's clothing? Doesn't he know he doesn't look anything like a woman? So, oh, me. I find that funny. I don't know. I find that funny because, look at me. uh, but yeah, when I got out of the army, I was pretty low, and so then I got out, and of course I'm thinking, well, it's because all the shit that I just took. That was my problem, and that's what's keeping me in this perpetual state of pissy. Uh, yeah, there really weren't any more events like that after that, uh, which you might call traumatic experiences, where I could look to and say that's the reason that I'm unhappy. Uh, but so I'm thinking, like, after I got out of the army, I went back to work for. I shouldn't say went back to work for. My dad and a friend of ours. He's a friend of mine and my dad's. Uh, had started their framing company, house framing, and I went to work for them. And that was just another experience where I was just like, this is just kind of a crappy kind of thing. And but at that time, my way to kind of deal with that crappiness was just to go get drunk on Fridays and Saturdays, and that's when I started going out, uh, instead of like staying at home and drinking and writing in my journal. I started going out to bars and that kind of thing, and this is when I started to become a little bit more sociable again, through that. Uh, and after maybe 3 or 4 years out of the army, and just going out and making friends in the area, all of whom I met at bars, and I don't think I made any friends outside of a bar during that time. Uh, it seemed like I was having a pretty good time, but the only thing was, when I look back at, like, the only, I don't want to say the only reason I was having, it's not the only reason, but like, I was still unhappy, but I was just basically just using drugs and alcohol again to cope. Yeah, during that time, I was using cocaine, uh, sometimes marijuana, mostly alcohol, and still Robitussin at that time. And basically just kind of living in this kind of like, my life is no good, but at least I can get fucked up kind of thing. Uh, and during that time, I wasn't really fixated on my problem. I wasn't like trying to figure out I've always kind of done it throughout my life. It's not always a daily thing, but I did spend a lot of time in my head just kind of thinking about, like, what is it? What is my problem? And but I would think usually it amounted to things just like that, like just the bad experiences I'd had in my life, my lack of confidence, which was probably compounded by these bad experiences, not having, like, what I would not really having any successes, nothing accomplishments that I could look at and that sort of thing and say, well, yeah, I did that. That did start to change when I started drawing around that time. When I was in Afghanistan, I had a lot of free time on my hands and not a lot to do, and so I took to trying to draw women from my imagination because I didn't have any women to look at, and realized very quickly that I didn't know what a woman looked like. It's like try to draw a woman from your imagination, and you're probably gonna have a hard time, and unless you've already done it like 1,000 times. So when I get somewhere around this time when I'm out of the army, I've been back home for a while. Something's like just get back into trying to draw women, but this time to go get like a magazine or something and just draw a woman from a magazine. So that's what I did, and of course, drawing from a magazine is much easier than trying to draw from your imagination. And so I started drawing some really good stuff, and I went and bought like some charcoal, and I started learning how to use charcoal to draw with, because prior to that I'd only been using pencils and crayons and pens, like ballpoint pens, and I thought maybe I'll just give like this art thing a shot. And with the charcoal, I started doing some really good stuff. I don't have any of those drawings. I don't. Some of those I had online on my old Facebook account, which I deleted. And I had saved the photos from that Facebook account, but then those somehow got deleted on my computer. I'm not entirely sure how that happened. But I started getting into that, and that was kind of that actually helped me get out of that hole, because it was, for one, it was a kind of an accomplishment to look at and say, well, yeah, I'm really good at this. But the other part of that was just that I'd always enjoyed that. Like I said, in the past, like before I joined the army, I would just sit with my journal and write, and sometimes I would draw things. And as a kid, I was always drawing. And so eventually what happened was I went to the Art Institute of Charlotte to get a degree in web design and interactive media. You might think I would have gone for like painting or illustration or something like that, which now that I look back at it, I probably should have. But I felt like this was like in 2010, and I thought, well, web design is probably a more marketable skill to have. I mean, like right now, like the internet was going crazy. I think 2010 was I on, I think MySpace had already kind of become unpopular. I'm not sure about the timeline there. Facebook had kind of taken over, and but just the internet was just kind of just going crazy. I mean, like new websites were popping up all the time, and I just thought making websites is the way to make money and a way to be creative. So I went to the Art Institute. I didn't finish. Another failure. I've been to college 8 times and not finished once. At the Art Institute, I didn't finish because my GI Bill, I went to summer school. I used my GI Bill to go to summer school while I was there, not realizing that would short me. Because summer school, the credit hours they're counted as full-time by the school, but they're not the same as a regular semester's full-time. So like a regular semester full-time might be 12 hours, but a summer school full-time might only be 5 hours. So, but when the GI Bill pays, what is it? It pays while you're in school. So basically you might say from the GI Bill's perspective, I was in school for, let's see, 6 semesters. which is all I needed, which was more than I needed. I only needed 4 semesters to graduate. I was there for an associate's degree. No, so it was 4. I'm sorry. So I did 4 semesters, but I needed 5 because of the summer school, and so I was a semester short of graduating, and it was $10,000 per semester. And I thought, I'm not going to pay $10,000 to finish. So, but that was just another failure. It was just another thing just to knock me down. It was around that time that I started thinking that I was trans, and that was part of that was because there was a trans person at that school. Was riding a bus, the school, not a bus, a shuttle van. The school had rented apartments near the school, not at the school, and then rented those to students as included in the tuition. So you pay your tuition, and they let you stay in the apartments, and the school had a shuttle to transport students from the apartments to the school, and this was the only time I think I saw the trans person that was at that school. We didn't have any classes together, but I remember sitting behind her. It was a trans woman, and obviously trans, like just total muscular arms and just kind of hard features and that kind of thing, but wearing like skin tight short sleeve shirts and earrings and that kind of thing, just very effeminately dressed, presenting as a woman. And I remember thinking, this person has the biggest balls of anybody I've ever met. And I thought, could I ever do that? Could I ever have balls that big that I could do that? Because at that time, for me, I didn't. I mean, I thought I could never do something like that. Like I would feel totally ridiculous, and so even then, I wasn't really thinking that I was trans then, but it was more. Even then, I took that as you're just a scaredy cat. You're just a punk bitch. You ain't got no balls. But it wasn't that I wanted to do. It wasn't like I'm not thinking to myself, well, I want to dress like a girl, but I'm scared. It was more like that person has bigger balls than you, kind of thing. So that was pretty much kind of how I saw it. Like my problem is not that I'm trans and I am, just not willing to do it. My problem is that I'm a scaredy cat. I have no courage. I have no confidence. I basically, I'm just a failure. Like I just, nothing I start out to do, I never finish. These were all the sorts of things that were just kind of going through my head, and kind of leading up to the realization that I'm trans. And that realization, when I finally realized that, it didn't really put those other things to rest. But it did. It totally changed my perspective on those things. Because what I saw in that realization was that I just wasn't being myself. It's not that I didn't have the confidence or the faith or the courage. It's like that I was. It's like I was going down the wrong road, and it just things just started to make sense. It's like, well, it's like no wonder you had no confidence. Like you had your own desires, and you were basically telling yourself that your desires were wrong all these years, basically. And yeah, so it wasn't like I was, like I said, it wasn't like I was thinking to myself, I want to be a woman, and I'm like, no, I can't do it. Uh, but there was just like, it's like I am trying to. One of the things that I was trying to do was like find this image of a man that I could be, that I felt like, because I would look at other men and I would think I don't want to be like them. Like the guys in the army, I thought I don't want to be like you guys. So, but there weren't guys like that. I mean, there weren't guys that I looked at and thought, well, I want to be like them. So I was kind of like constantly in this just like image searching phase. It can like just imagine somebody like going on the internet and they're looking for a certain image and they're just constantly going through images like, no, that's not it. That's not it. That's how my life was, where it's like I was constantly looking for this image of man that I just felt like I can rock this. And once I had that trans realization, then I started to think, well, that whole my whole aim, uh, you might say that was my problem. It was like that, just the whole fact that I'm trying to live in this narrow corridor of man. It's no wonder I was having such a hard time. And because when I see myself as a woman, it just feels like I don't really need to strive to be anything. It's more like I can just kind of relax and just let nature take its course. Uh, which was a one of the I had a Robitussin trip. One of the reasons I liked Robitussin was a lot of times I would have like insights for like being creative, especially for writing poetry. I liked it because it would I would write things that I didn't wasn't really conscious of, but that were made conscious during the trip. And but one lot sometimes I would just have visions. And so one time I'm tripping on Robitussin in this house by myself. I'm tripping. I'm the only one tripping in the house. There are other people there, but they didn't take Robitussin, so I was doing it by myself with them. But a lot of times when what would happen is I would kind of just go into my head and get into a head trip. I don't know if you need to know all that, but so I have this vision of this knot in wood. It's like a just, if you see, like you can almost picture like the grains of wood, and there's like just a knot right there. It's just like an island in a stream. So the knot in the wood, I realized it was kind of moving like a stream. The knot was staying still, but there was these kind of just grains of like energy going around it. And the vision told me that this kind of stream, this river, uh, was life, and the knot was me. And what life wanted was for me to kind of dissolve and go with it. Let it take me where it wanted me to go. And then it also told me that the reason that I'm stuck in this knot is that I'm holding on to something. There's something I just basically refuse to let go of. And at that time, I was in my early 20s. I was like 21 or 22. And I thought, well, it must be my gender. And because in my early 20s, I was already questioning, like I said, I was already questioning my masculinity. I was already kind of like, I'm maybe I should be a wife instead of a husband kind of thing. Uh, but it really wasn't something I wanted to look at. So the doubt was already there. So when I had that vision, that's what came to mind. And but now I do feel like that was the right interpretation. That because I'm not going to say that I've dissolved and the river is taking me, but that is kind of the direction that I feel like I'm going, or I feel like I can just let go. I don't have to. Uh, I don't have to try to be anything. I don't have to. It's like with the way I pictured my problem prior to that. It was like with these lacks of the lack of confidence and the lack of accomplishments, and it was like, well, I constantly have to kind of do something, right? Like I constantly have to kind of go fix my confidence and uh, stuff like that. It was like I had to kind of strive to kind of get myself out of this hole. And I'm not saying that people don't need to do that, but because even for me, there are things that I feel like I need to do. Like I need to exercise, I need to eat right, and that kind of thing. Uh, I don't need to be sleeping in bed all day and that kind of thing. But it did just, or was I going with this? Yeah, there's this whole thing of just like striving, just to kind of. It's like I was trying to project an image, or I was projecting an image. I had this image in front of me that I'm trying to get to that image. Uh, Whereas now it's more like I don't need to do that. I don't need to get to that image. I don't want to say I'm already there. Uh, but I don't know. I may have to think about that a little bit more because I feel like that was not very good communication right there. So I'm at a little bit over an hour. So yeah, the my what I wanted to do was just maybe if you are thinking that you're trans, or maybe you're unhappy and you didn't know why. What's going on here? One of my candles went out. That's what's happened. Uh, and my batteries are going dead on the lights here. But yeah, you may be like looking for other reasons, like why you're unhappy. Maybe you got a shitty job, or maybe you're married to a shitty wife, or whatever, or you don't have confidence because your coworkers pick on you or something like that. You know, that's why you're unhappy. But I'm not saying it's because you're trans, but if you've ever thought you might be trans, or you are thinking you might be trans, I would certainly consider that these other things you're telling yourself might not be true. I mean, it was true that I did lack confidence. I was not confident. Uh, but could I ever be confident as a man? I still ask myself that question. I thought that today, which is why I'm making this video, because I was in the mirror looking at my arms, and I just pictured my arms still a little bit muscular, at least compared to a woman's, and I just thought, like, maybe my only problem was like I just never I didn't get in enough fights. That's what I thought. I was looking in the mirror at my arms, and I thought about I just imagine myself with these really muscular arms. Oh my god, this is gonna stop. Oh well, that's the end.